Have you ever hoped that you would find the love of your life? Maybe some of you already have. But I'm talking about the kind of love, that makes your heart flutter, that makes you feel all tingly inside, that makes you so excited the next time that you're going to see that person, that kind of love. Now, might seem like a stupid question, but why? Why would we want to find that kind of love? So what would you say? Why would you want to find that kind of love? Sex. Of course! Great sex! What else? Because you feel alive, because it's fun, and it's better to watch Netflix with someone else than just by yourself. So I was 17, and he was 18. And he was tall, dark, and very handsome. And I was young, naive, and romantic. And we fell in love. So we got married, and we came to Canada to start our life together. We had 2 beautiful children, and he was starting to build his business, and we agreed that I would be a stay-at-home mom. And so I met some girls in the neighborhood, and we became friends. Now, this was way back in, the early 2000s when Oprah was doing her talks every 4 o'clock every day on TV. And this friend of mine came to me and she said, Gail, I saw this thing on Oprah and I'm going to buy it. And I think that we should do it. I said, what kind of a thing? And she said, it's a game. I said, okay. So we gathered some of the women in the neighborhood together. We met at her house when the kids were in school. Now, the game was called Go Goddess. I had no idea what it meant to be a goddess at that time in my life. But we became known as the Goddess Group. So I never forget the first week that we got together. And this game was structured that it had a bunch of candles, and little did I know at the time that they were all the chakra colors, and there was cards that you pulled out, and someone answered the question, or else the whole table answered the question. It was all about relationships and the kind of stuff that women like to talk about. So that first time that we were together, one of the cards that was pulled had to go around the table and everyone had to answer it. And I sat and I watched and I listened as these women said, no, I'd never do that. No, I'd never do that. Nope, I'd never do that. And it came to me and the answer was out my mouth. Before I even thought about it, the answer was, yeah. The question was, would you leave a loveless relationship, or would you stay in it for the sake of your children? And I knew in that moment that I would leave. Now, I was with the love of my life. What was going on? But then, it's funny. If you knew what your future was going to look like, would you want someone to tell you? Isn't that what we go to psychics for? Tell us what's going to happen. When am I going to meet the love of my life? When is this going to happen? Well, I can tell you right now that if I had known what my future was going to look like at that point, ladies and gentlemen, I would have climbed under a rock and I would have never come out again, because that question alone was to change my life. It was to change the life of my husband, and it was to change the life of my 2 children. Because in that moment, I realized that I was actually in one of those loveless marriages. He was a great man, but we changed. We met when we were so young, but you try to fix it, right? So that question led me on a quest. 6 years of marriage counseling. 14 years of healing myself. Because I didn't realize that I was a big part of the problem in this loveless marriage. Which, if you don't look at yourself, you're never going to know. Because I was blaming him all the time. And then as a result of that, what was I going to do with the rest of my life? So I started this journey of looking at myself and deciding, well, what do I have to offer the world? And that led me to around a dozen years of just intense healing and training and understanding why I was so disconnected from my body, why I couldn't express myself, why I didn't know how to be a happy person. Because at the time I was really angry and really miserable. And sometimes in a divorce, that's just the way it is. So I started to retrain myself. And I got really curious about how people work and how human dynamics works. And what about love and what about sex? And I started to discover that, I had received a lot of different kinds of abuse in my life, but it could be better. I could be better. I could be different. 3 months into the beginning of my work, and my husband and I were out for dinner at the Keg, and he looked across the table at me and he said, "Gail, I don't even know who you are anymore." Now, unfortunately, the marriage didn't survive that transition. Well, I mean, who could blame him? It really wasn't about him. This was really about me. Who was I? Who was I being? And who was I being as a woman? And who was I being as a mom with my children? And what I realized is that if I was to have stayed in that loveless marriage, I would have been showing my children that that is normal. That is okay. And I made a decision in that moment that I was not willing to do that for their sake. And I'm very excited now because my daughters are almost 22 and 24, and they're happy, successful, professional young women. Both of them are in lovely relationships, and yet I remain single. However, I've learned 3 things from that experience. One is, all we really have is right now. You know, we can try and figure out what the future's going to look like, but we don't know. But what if we can just be really present now? I teach sacred sexuality now. How do we really use our 5 senses and experience life fully? I've also learned that, number 2, can't change anyone else unless they want to. So I really had to do all the inner work myself and understand where I came from. 7 years later, I was in therapy with my daughter at the time. She was 17. And she looked at the therapist and she said, "My mom turned into an alien." Now, for those of you who know me, I actually channel galactic entities. She was not far off. But at the time, all she knew was that her mom had changed from being this people-pleasing, doing everything for everyone else, angry woman into someone who was willing to be assertive and confident and own her own body and own what was real for her. So I had to really understand that I had to do the work myself. And the third thing that I've realized is that love is everywhere. And that when I got into my heart and I got connected to my body and I got out of my head, as one coach called me, "Gail, you're a talking head." And I began to really feel what I wanted, and I could ask for it, and I could really enjoy life to the fullest. Then I could see that everybody was just the same as me. Yeah, we walk around in these bodies and we look different, but inside it's all the same. We all have the same organs. We all have a beautiful heart that could be full of love. And we all have the same thoughts. regrets, fears, dreams, hopes, excitement that we want. So if love is everywhere and love is in me, then that means love is in you. And that means that if you go out from that place like I try to do every day and be love, guess what? You're going to meet the love of your life because it's right here. Thank you.